Today we'll check in with our board president, who will update us on the status of the main pump station, finances, the resignation of 2 board members, and we'll go on location with Scott McCrae to get an inside look at Tenasseee. All this and more, so stay tuned. Welcome to Tellico Village Quarterly POA Board Update. I'm Beth Kuberka, and I'm here with Board President John Orr to review topics from the 3rd quarter of this year. Welcome, John, and thank you for joining us on Tellico Village Network.
Thanks. Pleasure to be here.
Well, John, there's no shortage of topics for us to discuss today. As usual, the board has had several important topics and issues to focus on. One that's been going for quite some time is the 2022 Reserve Study. I'm pleased to share that it's been updated, and we're going to have that posted by the end of October on the POA website. But can you take a moment to explain to property owners what the Reserve Study is and why it's an important part of planning for the village?
Reserve Study is essentially an analysis of all of our assets. And the reason you do it is to make sure you have funds available when the time comes to either repair or replace those assets. So it essentially drives a large financial analysis that gives you a path to a savings account for future expenses. And these expenses are for a wide variety of things, everything from HVAC on buildings and roofs and lawn cutting equipment, every asset that we own. And the entire goal of doing a reserve study is to prevent special assessments should unforeseen large expenses come along that necessitate large expenditures in a short time period. So, for example, that a roof on a large building could be very expensive, several $100,000, and we know that roofs last roughly 25 years. So the reserve study essentially estimates when that 25-year period will be up and what the cost will be at the end of that 25-year period, because it may be quite different than the cost today or the cost to initially install it. So proper financial planning dictates that we have enough savings in that account to pay for the new roof or any other asset that may be at its end of its useful life. With these reserve studies, the goal is always to be 100% reserved, meaning that you always have 100% of the funds that it anticipates you needing, but they always recommend you have at least 70 to 75%, because statistics show that anything below that level of funding significantly increases your need for a special assessment. So that's what we did. We did it initially in 22. We had the consultant come out May of 22 to do the on-site work. The report was released later that year, that essentially the whole financial calculation started January 1st of 23. But as has been noted at many a board meeting by myself, in fact, there was plenty of flaws in that initial reserve study. The first being we did not provide adequate data on all of our assets. The consultant was basically left to estimate how many, say, lawnmowers Gulf had and what the estimated cost was of all those lawnmowers, and they had no data on when those lawnmowers were put into service and how long they will last. So they used a lot of estimates, and they consolidated a lot of costs into one big, multiple big buckets. So it really was not as good as we would have hoped, which is why we made the decision to update it last year. Well, beginning of this year. I mean, we decided last year, but
Right.
it didn't get updated until this year, which is much shorter than the typical 5-year interval that you would update these. So this time, at least, they started with a detailed asset list that listed every piece of equipment, the date it was bought, how much it was bought for, and what its useful life is. And from there, we got a very detailed analysis of future cash flows. So that's a big, big help in our financial planning, because now we have cash flow analysis for all of our capital expenditures, you know, ostensibly for the next 30 years, although once you get out past 5 or 10 years, it's not as clear cut. But certainly the next 5 years, it's pretty clear cut what sort of capital expenses we're going to have. So this is a huge improvement to our financial planning process.
Good. And what are the differences between this new study versus the old one?
Well, first off, I guess, as I've already mentioned, this time we started with the detailed list of capital assets, and last time we did not provide that to them. But perhaps one of the biggest differences that people will notice you look at the total dollar amount of our assets, this one is much smaller than the first one. For one, it's much more accurate. The second is we have excluded what's considered long-lived assets. And those are assets like roads, water piping, and the like that have useful lives 50, 75, 100 years. So we're not including that in what our reserve requirements are in the time frame of this study, which is 30 years. So those items, while they're listed in there, they're not driving our required reserves. But once one of those assets falls into that 30-year time frame, then it will trigger a need to start reserving for that asset. So that made a big difference. In our old study, everything was in there, and we were hoping to someday get to 30% reserved, which is very, very low compared to what they say, the experts say, is 75 to 100%. And now we have a much more workable analysis that we can count on for our financial planning and actually be 100% reserved in the next 3 to 5 years. We should get there.
So just as a brief follow-up, so like roads, for instance, we have a very good road maintenance plan. So is that no longer funded out of reserves, correct? And that's funded now out of operations, like that maintenance?
Well, the preventative maintenance on the road, where we seal the roads every so many years, what we've learned, we've tried a bunch of different techniques. We've settled in on the kind of what the industry says is the best preventative maintenance. And basically by spending the money to do this preventative maintenance, it significantly increases the useful life of that road. So normally it would be about 12 to 15 years you'd have to do what they call a mill and fill. You grind it down and you put another layer on it.
Which is expensive.
Very expensive. Yeah. And so by doing this preventative maintenance on the roads, for example, we can extend that to 25 or 30 years and potentially indefinitely extend the time frame where you would have to tear out the road down to the dirt and start over.
Okay,
so our processes and our preventative maintenance has matured in the last several years.
So John, another example would be like the golf course greens?
True, the greens were included in the last study to be completely replaced over time. But in our discussions since they came out in 22, discussions with Wells and the enhancements they've made in their greens maintenance, Wells now feels that there's no reason to have to do wholesale greens replacements. There's a potential where you may have to replace one green if something happens to it, or if you have a natural disaster that might damage it. but he does not foresee a time where they would ever have to completely replace greens with their more enhanced maintenance program.
So another topic, at the last board meeting, Long Range Planning completed a benchmark study. One of their goals was comparing Tellico Village cost and amenities to similar communities in the southeast. Can you give us a little bit of an update on that presentation and what it revealed?
Sure. The update from Long Range Planning at the September board meeting was outstanding. It contained a lot of information, more than I can cover here. So if you haven't already seen it, I recommend that everybody go and watch that, at least that portion of the September board meeting on the TV and YouTube channel. There's a lot of great information in there. That said, Phil covered a number of topics. The first of which was a housing update, and for years Long Range has been updating the housing market in Tellico Village and when they anticipate us being at full build out. So right now they're saying that we will essentially be at 90% build out by the end of 26, which is far sooner than previous estimates. And given the number of lots that are essentially unbuildable, and others that will not be built on anytime soon because, for example, a number of property owners have bought the lot next to them to prevent something being built next to them while they're living in their house. So there was an estimate done last year of how many the houses were in that category, and it was a fair number of properties, if I should say, that are being held by property owners to prevent construction next to them. But so we're going to be essentially at build out end of 26, beginning of 27. So what does that really mean for the village? You know, I've mentioned this in other in board meetings and I think a previous board update that we are transitioning from growth mode at Tellico Village to more of a maintain and enhance mode. Over the last 5 years, tens of millions of dollars have been generated from the sale and build out of lots. Much of those funds were used to fund our reserves, but going forward, we're going to lose all of that revenue. And the decrease in 25 alone has already put stress on our finances, which is why we focused so hard this year on continuing improvement efforts and had very successful, basically 2 years of probably going to be at least 1.5 million over that 2-year period of continuous improvement results. But the challenge is, while our revenue decreases because we're no longer growing, we don't want to let our assets deteriorate, which the reserves are going to help prevent that and take care of them. But deteriorating assets like amenities could be a big deterrent in people choosing Tellico Village as their place to retire. I guess the other note I will make is that there was a 2024 study done that looked at, or surveyed people looking to retire soon, and shockingly 39% prefer only new construction when looking for their retirement home. But only 9% prefer only existing homes. The 52% in between can go either way. But that very soon, when we have no new construction in the village, we could potentially lose 39% of buyers looking to retire here because we don't have any lots to build on. So that's a concern going forward, and another reason why we got to focus on our assets and our amenities.
So Long Range Planning also mentioned benchmarking some other communities. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, they did a very extensive study on other master plan communities, primarily in the southeast. Looking at a number of attributes, they ended up selecting 23 master plan communities and compared each of those against Tellico Village on a variety of attributes like size of the development, the age, the amenities, and costs, both assessment costs and cost of living. But their findings were rather interesting. Point out a couple. Size-wise, we're kind of in the middle with regard to the number of current and total potential homes of the 23. And as far as age of the community, we're a little on the older side compared to the group. But when it came to amenities, they looked at 16 different amenities, and these amenities this analysis simply noted whether a community had the amenity, not the quality of the amenity. That's much more subjective. This is a more analytical approach. But in the end, Tellico Village has 75% of those selected amenities that they looked for. No community had 100%. And it was somewhat interesting that the 4 that we didn't have were ball fields, horseshoe pits, billiards, and on-site gun range. But lastly, with the benchmarking, it showed that Tennessee had the second lowest cost of living of the states where these 23 communities were located. And as far as assessments, that we were well below the average percentage increase over the last 6 years of our assessments. And while we were not the lowest percentage increase, we were the lowest from a dollar increase over that 6-year period. So I guess the bottom line to me is that this very thorough analysis showed that what we all knew when we chose to move here, that Tellico Village has more to offer than other communities and at a lower cost.
All right, let's switch gears just a little bit. Let's talk about the main pumping station, which has been a topic all year long. It's something that this study project we've been looking at for quite some time now. It was recommended by the Public Service Advisory Committee as well as the Finance Advisory Committee, plus others. Even though costs have continued to rise. John, can you explain why the board felt it was important to take this step now, how the potential grant can factor into the decision, and any risk we face with a delay?
Yeah, maybe I'll start with a little bit of history. Upgrades to our main pump station were originally recommended by our engineering firm back in '21, along with some rough estimates at that point of what it might cost. And then we proceeded to do some preliminary engineering along the way, and we ultimately received a grant from Loudoun County in early '23 for $2.1 million to help pay for the cost of the upgrade. Then in late '23, the board approved the completion of the engineering, the 100% engineering package, and but we did not end up going out to bid on the project until mid-2025 due to ongoing debates about the path forward. And of course, these debates delayed the entire process, which ultimately resulted in much higher costs than we were originally given back in '21. And of course, we all know what happened since '21. Record inflation, building boom. There's far fewer contractors that can do this kind of work and can do it in the time frame that we need to meet our grant deadline. So the cost did end up being considerably higher than those original estimates. But the board still felt that the right path forward was to replace the lift station, as did the Public Service Advisory Committee and the FAC, who both approved this path and recommended that the board approve it. And I guess the alternative would be to try to rehabilitate the existing pump station that was built almost 40 years ago.
So you mentioned there was a lot of discussion about the rehab option. What can you tell me about what led not to go that route?
ultimately, the engineers on the Public Service Advisory Committee, many of which have extensive backgrounds in wastewater design and management, recommended replacement over rehab. And the primary reasons were the unknown scope and cost of a rehab, as well as the unknown lifespan of what is now an almost 40-year-old wet well. As the process was explained to us, in order to get a firm cost, you would have to go through extensive testing of the wet well, which means you have to do a full bypass, drain it, clean it, do all kinds of testing on the structure before you could even start engineering it. So the best estimate was it could be 6 months to a year and hundreds of thousands of dollars before we would even get a more concrete estimate of what that option would even cost. And at which time we would have forfeited the grant. So whatever that cost was, you could essentially add 2.1 million to it of lost funds. But that was the main reason, was the unknown risk of it. And as a couple of the engineers said that are familiar with doing these sorts of rehabs, you never know what it's going to entail until you're in there doing the work, because you would think that these things were okay, but until you get in there and start doing it, you may find that there's new things that you didn't foresee that have to be replaced. So anyways, the rehab option ultimately, from their perspective, would have led us right back to the same place we're at now, 8 to 10 years from now, is looking at another multi-million-dollar rehab or replacement. Whereas the replacement gets us a fully modern, new wet well pumping system, fully variable speed controlled and automated, that we never have to think about in any of our lifetimes ever again.
Okay. So this project was approved, but kind of as long as we got the grant extension. Can you give us an update on that grant extension? Have we heard anything?
Well, they did grant the extension. Of course, the deadline didn't change. Right. The extension was only to commence work on site. So that was extended. The work essentially still has to be done by the end of August next year, which the contractor assured us and TDEC that they can do it. Okay. So that's one big hurdle out of the way. Right. And now we've got to just get the paperwork done.
So John, the Consumer Advocate Division filed a petition to intervene in a complaint with the Tennessee Public Utility Commission requesting a show cause proceeding. I know there has been some confusion on whether this is a lawsuit or a simple inquiry at this stage. Can you give us a brief update?
Yeah, this entire process started with a request for determination by a property owner of Tellico Village back on June 17th as to whether or not the TVPOA was exempt from TPUC regulation. I'll note that that request has subsequently been retracted by the property owner. But on July 7th, as you mentioned, the Consumer Advocate Division filed a petition to intervene in this determination. And just for clarity, I wanted to read the actual filing, because it's a rather confusing wording, and I don't want to try to read anything into it. But basically on July 7th, 2025, the Consumer Advocates petition to intervene and/or complaint for the Tennessee Public Utility Commission to convene a show cause proceeding against Tellico Village Property Owners Association. In the petition, the Consumer Advocate asks that the Commission grant the Consumer Advocate's intervention in this docket, or in the alternative, to convene a show cause proceeding requiring Tellico Village property owners to appear before the Commission to show cause why the Commission should not have jurisdiction over TVPOA as a regulated public utility. So there's a lot going on there. I guess to answer your question, the Attorney General is not suing Telco Village, as has been thrown out there a lot at meetings and online. This is simply a petition by a consumer advocate group trying to intervene in what should have just been a administrative exercise by the TPUC. So once the Consumer Advocate Division filed their petition, we filed a motion to dismiss their petition on August 18th. And subsequently, on September 8th, the Consumer Advocate Division responded to our motion to dismiss. And by the way, all of these filings are available to the public on the TPCU website, quite easy to find. But now this matter currently sits before a administrative law judge for consideration of our motion to dismiss. We have no idea how long it will take for this judge to make a decision, but as soon as we have it, we will update the community.
All right, let's move on to Tenassi. There has been a lot of progress at Tenassi site over the past quarter, including the erection of the steel structure. And our TVN crew was able to catch up with Scott McCrae, our project manager on site, to give us a tour of the inside of the building. So let's go to Scott.
So I'm Scott McCrae. I'm the project manager for the Tenassi rebuild project. And today is September 24th. And here we are on the job site of the restaurant rebuild and the pro shop rebuild. And what we have here, if you look straight through, we've got what will be a covered portico. So the entrance to both the pro shop and to the restaurant will be from underneath the portico there. And it gives us a nice open view of the lake and a nice breeze coming through there. All the way in the back where you see the concrete workers on that wall, that's where our fireplace is going to be for an outdoor fireplace and an outdoor patio. And in here we have our pro shop area. There'll be a covered walkway to go down to get to the cart barn, which is on the lower level. And over here, hiding behind our construction crane, that will be the front of the restaurant. So right now I'm standing underneath what will become the portico, which is between the pro shop and the restaurant. And directly behind me will be the front doors and entry into the restaurant. And over to the right over here, where you see all the conduit and plumbing sticking up, that will be where the bar is. So the bar is all the way in the back part of the restaurant and right there overlooking the lake. And as you'll see, all the open steel, those will be all floor to ceiling windows, so that when you're in the restaurant having dinner or lunch, or when you're in the bar just having a cocktail and a snack, you'll be able to look out over the beautiful Tellico Lake and all. And then immediately outside of there, we have an open air patio. We'll have some patio heaters and a nice fireplace there for the winter. It'll be 3 sides glass. So we'll have a very nice area for people to sit outside, both in the summer and in the winter. So now I've turned around and still in the same spot in the portico, but now behind me is the pro shop. And for the pro shop, we'll have 2 entrances, one down in the front, go directly into the pro shop, and another entrance here from underneath the portico that will go into the flex space and all. And then of course have access out onto the patio and see all of that. And once again, floor to ceiling windows wherever possible. So we get the maximum view of the golf course, the maximum view of the lake. And it really is going to be just a spectacular building when it's completed. Over here to my right, what you'll see is a couple of the concrete workers. They're in the process of placing the concrete in there for the walls for the fireplace. And again, nice outdoor space. It's 14 feet long. It's going to have 3 separate fireplace inserts, and will be a wonderful place to sit there. Glass all around. Will be a wonderful place to sit there in the spring and the fall, and when it's a little cooler outside. So here we are now. We're in the cart barn itself, which is actually the basement of the pro shop building and the flex space building. And what we'll be doing is, if you can see the openings, the garage door openings, we've got 4 of them, so the carts can come in and go out very easily. We've got enough storage for all of our carts, plus some extra storage for tables and things that might have to be put up in the winter, or if a serious storm were to come by. We've actually taken the time to lay out, and Casey and his team came and helped me lay out where the carts would go and how we would do it, so we could get all the chargers in right. And hopefully, if all goes according to plan, we should be ready to start using the new Pro Shop sometime in March. And that way we'll get the temporary cart barn taken out and get all the carts moved over here as we get power to the building. So this was a quick overview of progress as of the end of September. We're working very diligently to get both buildings dried in, the Pro Shop by the end of October, and restaurant before Thanksgiving. And again, while we're a little bit behind schedule, we're still on track to open late in the second quarter of 2026. Looking forward to having everybody come out to Tenacity Restaurant when we open.
Thanks, Scott, for that update. John, do you have anything you would like to add about Tenacity?
Well, since I look at the building from my backyard, I can tell you that it has really taken shape in the last month or two. The steel is up, as you've seen. The roof is up on the golf side and soon to be completed on the restaurant side. They've even gone as far as putting in work lighting on the interior of the golf side of the building. Overall, the project is still under budget, and while some weather had impacted our schedule early in the year, the crews are working hard to try to make up some time, including having some of the steel workers working 7 days a week while the weather is good. Current schedule has the building being weathered in by the end of October, so that there's less likely of any weather related delays to the schedule going forward. Right now the tentative opening date for the golf side is around the April-May timeframe, and the restaurant we're shooting for the end of June.
So another thing that property owners may not realize is that management has been working on the budget for a few months already. We've updated our SWOTs, which stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, as well as our business plans. Can you give us an update on the schedule for the remainder of the budget season?
In early July, the board and FAC got together to develop fairly detailed budget guidance for the 26 budget. This is a fairly new process. In fact, last year was the first time that the board really gave this sort of detailed guidance prior to the budget being developed. They gave a lot of guidance afterwards, but that's less constructive. So I can tell you that the budget process is arduous, but the last 5 years that I've been involved with it, it's improved every year. We've made significant improvements in the last 2 years. For example, last year was the first time that all departments did business plans. So we had business plans of each department detailing all of their short and long-term goals and objectives and everything they plan to do with their department in the next 3 to 5 years. So that goes a long way to helping drive the budget process. So anyways, for the last 60 days, POA staff has been working tirelessly on preparing the business plans, reviewing detailed budgets that achieved all of the budget targets, and we're about to start the review process here at the beginning of October. So during the month of October, primarily the FAC will take the lead on reviewing and analyzing all the budgets in detail. It will culminate in 4 days of detailed reviews with the FAC, and typically a number of board members will attend those review meetings. Once we get past those review meetings, the FAC will oversee any changes that have been recommended and then ultimately will recommend a budget to the board for the 26 fiscal year. So this year, in an effort to communicate to a wider audience than the handful of people that would be willing to sit through 4 days of detailed budget reviews, we've decided to produce individual department videos where the department leader will communicate their business plans and budgets. These videos will be produced the week of October 27th and published soon thereafter, as soon as the editing can be done, and posted to TVN's YouTube page for anybody in the village to view. And the nice thing about this is, rather than sitting through 4 days to see maybe a few things you're really interested in, you can go and just watch, say, the golf update or the rec update and not have to sit through the entire process. So look forward to that late October, very early November. And then the rest of the budget process timeline is that on November 6th at 9 a.m., 5th floor of the Yacht Club, there will be an open budget meeting that will be a review of the entire budget for TV POA for next year. And then the final step then is the official budget approval at the board meeting on November 19th.
So John, over the past 2 months, we've had 2 unexpected resignations, Mike Braddock and Steve Schneider. Can you share any insights?
Well, I would like to say on behalf of the POA, I want to take a moment to thank both Steve and Mike for their service to the community. Steve has been on the board for just short of 8 years, which is unprecedented. And they both worked tirelessly on POA business. I can't offer any additional insights. Mike shared that he's stepping down after reevaluating his priorities. And Steve ended up selling his house and moving to Knoxville. So I can't tell if that was, tell you any additional information as to why the timing was off, but it was, and we'll have to leave it at that.
Okay. Well, in light of that, the board recently voted to bring Carla Johnson back. Can you tell us what led to that decision and what factors were considered?
Sure. With the resignation of Mike Braddock in August, a majority of the board opted to do what every other board has done historically, which is exercise our right to appoint a replacement to fill the vacancy for the remainder of the term. In this case, it's 15 months. We did what has historically been done, which is to look for property owners who are active with the POA and have some firsthand knowledge of POA operations, because it really takes months and months to get up to speed on just the basics of village operations, and obviously takes a full year to experience the full cycle of POA operations, including planning and budgeting. So given the short-term nature of this appointment, we wanted someone with experience that could contribute from day one. Amongst a handful of folks that were actually interested, we felt that Carla Johnson had the best possible level of experience. Carla was a former board member from 2019 through 2021. After leaving the board, she has remained very active in the community. She was appointed to the board of Timeless Teleco, and for 3 years worked tirelessly on that foundation as the board president. And of course, for years, she has been the host of this production as well as other TVN productions. So we are very thankful for Carla's willingness to do this, what has become a somewhat thankless job.
Yeah, look forward to working with Carla again. And that's a wrap for your third quarter POA Board Update. Thank you for tuning in. And thank you, John, for being here and keeping the viewers informed.
You're welcome.
And remember, you can watch the live stream of board meetings as they happen or on demand later. Just visit the TVN YouTube channel under Live. And there you will find videos of past board and town hall meetings. Be sure to join us again next quarter for more timely topics. And as always, thank you for watching Teleco Village Network. We'll see you again next time.